All right. We're here with Crystal from Hawthorne Homestead. And I found her on Instagram.
Yep.
So do you have any other social media or any place where other people can find you?
So far, that's the only place I'm at right now.
Mhm.
I would like to transition my Facebook page just to for the homestead, but I haven't quite. I just want to get off Facebook in general, but I kind of want to keep it for the page. But yeah,
Yeah.
just on Instagram for now.
Yeah, no, I love your Instagram page, and that's how I found you.
Thank you.
So, what initially got you into homesteading?
Well, I think when I talked the other night, if you would have asked me if we would be in this position where we're at, even just 2 years ago, I would have said you were crazy. Because we had lived in our home. We moved in the home 2 months after we got married, and
Mhm.
we lived there for almost 23 years. And it was in a subdivision.
Mhm.
And we always had a garden. And then we decided we wanted to get out of the subdivision and have some land. And we looked at a couple houses and nothing really, we didn't really like anything. And this piece of land that we built our house on, it came up for sale, and it was for sale for probably over a year. And then one day he dropped the price several $1,000s. And I thought, okay, that's a sign that we're supposed to have this property. So we put an offer in on it, and he accepted it. And so we bought the land first, and then we started working with an architect um, and then a builder, which I've known since we were teenagers, and went from there. And we sold our house and moved into a rental house, and while we were building this house. And so we've been here. On the 20th will be a year that we've been here. So we kind of jumped in with both feet and started a 50 by 100-foot garden. Kind of got a little out of hand probably,
No, that's
but yeah,
amazing.
that's how this started.
So you got to actually build your home on your lands.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yes.
So one of the things I was going to ask is what were you looking for when you were looking for your property, but it kind of sounds like it kind of fell into your lap and the signs and everything was right. So what were some of the things that you looked at when you were building your home? Are you um, powered by electric? Are you off grid? Water
Yeah,
sources?
so we have a well, and with building a house, I mean, that's a whole topic in itself. But
Yeah.
with building a house, I could, if somebody wanted to give them advice, I would be like, make sure you can get water first. Where we're at is not on the city water, so we had to have a well, and it took them 4 digs to find us water. And at that time, we already had the whole house had been framed and wrapped, and they were getting ready to put on siding. So we were, needless to say, I was thinking, okay, so we have this stick home and no water. So um, I started praying, and I
Mm-hmm.
started digging through paperwork and found where there had been an old house years and years ago up at the front of the property. So I'm like,
Okay.
okay, there has to be water up there somewhere. So they found water up there. So we have well water. We're on a septic. We are hooked to the electric grid, and we also have gas. So that was important to us to have gas heat
Mm-hmm.
and a gas cooktop for the kitchen.
Okay.
But now looking back on it, if I knew, when we started the whole process, I probably would have went with a wood burning fireplace.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Maybe not so much being off the grid, maybe down
Mm-hmm.
the road, but for now, we're not at that point yet.
Yeah, that's
So,
that's a big chunk to bite off and a lot
right.
to, yeah. So you guys are looking at putting in a wood burning fireplace or just something that you,
Maybe down the road, or
yeah.
if we build a barn, uh,
Mm-hmm.
on the property, maybe we'll put one out there,
Yeah.
just for emergency purposes, or, my husband's working out there. Maybe that
Yeah.
would have the wood burning stove if he's cold or whatever. And, in an emergency, we could all go out there if we had to.
Right. So you also build a barn then with your
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
That's on the long-term 5-year plan.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a whole different 5-year plan too.
Right.
Lots and lots of projects.
Yes.
So you mentioned you had a garden before a drilled house. So is that the first thing you did at your new homestead as far as homesteading, is your garden?
Yes. Yep. That was the first thing that my husband couldn't wait until tax season was over and he could get out. We're still using my grandfather's tiller that he used in his garden all years ago. So he fired up the tiller and got right to work.
And you said, how big is it?
It's 50 feet by 100 feet.
That's a pretty massive garden.
Yeah, it was pretty big. And I think at the end, it kind of got the better of us with the weeds and so this year we have a better plan for weed control. We're going to lay down plastic or, landscaping paper that's reusable. And so we're learning as we go. We always had a garden at the other house for over 20 years. And, here it's on a much bigger scale. That was more manageable. This is not as much.
Yeah, it's a lot. So do you guys have a greenhouse or anything yet?
Not yet. I would like to have one. We kind of priced out some options for that. The next thing on our project list is we have all the supplies in the garage for chicken coop.
Okay.
So that's an ongoing project during tax season as time allows, because my husband is a CPA, so this is his busy time of year.
Right. So what's your plan for your chicken coop? Like, what are you thinking? Are you thinking chicken tractor or in-place chicken coop? Or
so we'll have an in-place chicken coop and probably the hoop style tractor that I can move around the yard.
Yeah.
Make it so I can move it.
Right. Yeah. So it's not so heavy.
Right, because I'll probably be the one, for the most part, that's taking care of everything.
Now, I know that when we talked earlier, you did mention you do have bees on your property.
Yes, we do.
But I just think this was such an ingenious way of saying, all right, I don't have the skills yet to do this, but I want to have bees on my property.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about that process and what you did. I just think it was just a phenomenal way of resourcing.
Okay. Yeah. So I think I tell people that I'm a homestead. I mean, we're beginning homesteaders, but I'm a resourceful homesteader. I outsource some of my things. Yeah. So the bees, for example, I just found some honey bottles. We have a grocery store in town, and most of their products are local products. So I just went and I took snapshots of the front of the bottles that have the phone numbers listed for these bees, the honey people, and I just started calling people. And it just so happened the first 2 people I called, the one lady, she was so excited and she was like, yes, I'd love to have bees on your property, because I told her, here we have X amount of acres, we are up against a field, so I was kind of concerned with them spraying the crops that would bother the bees, but they have them in a place where it's not affecting them at all. So she came out and checked it out, and so we flattened out a spot for her. And then the next bottle that I called, they came out and looked, and they found a place where they wanted to be. So they're not close to each other, they're on opposite ends of the property, so it works out for everybody all around. And then we benefit because we get honey whenever we want, whenever I run out, or they just ask, hey, do you need any honey? And actually, I had just texted, or he had just texted me earlier, the one group, well, they're 2 brothers, and they had brought some hot honey by, because my daughter loves hot honey on her pizza. So he was checking to make sure it wasn't too spicy.
Oh.
So So yeah, and it's been a great relationship. Like I said, they give us honey whenever we need it, and it's worked out.
So you got a really good response from just the first two people you called.
Right.
Yeah, so that gives like people hope and incentive to really not be afraid to reach out to other resources like honey, or I know some people have goats that they take to other people's land to graze, like just building those relationships for different resources. I think that's
Right.
awesome.
Right. And I mean, we wanted them for, obviously to pollinate our garden, but it
Right.
also helps them out because the two brothers, they have their honey in several local small shops in town.
Mm-hmm.
So the more locations they're at, the more honey they produce, and I don't know, it just it works out for everybody involved, and I think it was a good way. Those were the first two relationships that I was able to develop after we moved in here.
Yeah, and even with the honey, I don't know with yourself or your kids, but I know the closer that the honey is produced or collected or whatever, the better it helps allergies and stuff.
Yes, right.
So yeah, that's amazing they were able to do that. Have you noticed an improvement in your health just since you started?
Yes, and I actually, it does help. I have really bad seasonal allergies, and it helps tremendously with that. I also started making fermented honey, which I put in my tea. So that was another skill that I picked up that I may not have tried if we didn't have our own local honey.
Yeah, no. So tell me about the fermented honey, because I was reading about that and I've been like, oh, how do I do that? So what's the process like for that?
So around Thanksgiving, they always have cranberries. So I made a cranberry one. I just put, I can't remember the exact measurements, but I think maybe a half a cup of cranberries or a cup of cranberries in a pint-sized jar and covered it all the way to just right under the lid.
Okay.
And then I put parchment paper over top of that because the liquid will rust the lid. Parchment paper over that, and then flip it every morning and in the evening, and then burp it every day. And the honey draws out the liquid from the cranberries. I also added star anise and cardamom. I added cardamom and I think cinnamon stick. So it had a little bit extra flavor to it. And then, like I said, I add that to my tea, and so I just make myself a hot tea every evening, and that I work so hard to make that honey. It just makes it taste all that much better. Or the infused honey, it makes it taste so much better.
That sounds delicious. So how long do you flip? So you flip it upside down in the morning, then you flip it back over in the evening.
Yep, and then burp it. So you burp it once a day to let it so it doesn't explode.
Right.
So I think I let it go 5 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
So I started it around Thanksgiving, and it was ready right at Christmas time.
Wow. That's awesome. And you definitely, I'm sure you benefit from your allergies.
Yes, most definitely.
All right. So what's been your best resource for learning this stuff? Like as a new homesteader, what's helped you the most?
Well, for sure, Instagram has been a huge, there's a huge homesteading community, but I didn't, I had a personal Instagram page, so I didn't get into the homesteading Instagram. I didn't start that account until September. So really from February till September, we were just kind of winging it. And like I said, we made local connections. The people down the road from us, they have cows, and I would stop, and they're selling eggs. So I would stop there and talk to them a little bit and just kind of put a bug in their ear, made that contact and said, hey, we got this land out front. If you need hay, if you want to plant the front and hay, you're more than welcome to do that. So, I at least put a bug in their ear. If down the road they want to use the front of our property to plant hay, then maybe we can do some kind of, I'm all for the barter system.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
And we have a couple at church. They're an older couple, but they have a huge farm, and she has been a huge resource for me. I ask her all the time about chickens and canning and gardening and all kinds. She has a 2-acre garden. So I'm like, that my 50 to 100 by 100 is, to me, is huge, but 2 acres, that's just massive. And we did a homeschool field trip to their farm, and she's been a wealth of information. So just, I think making those connections with people that are like-minded and are interested in the same things you're interested in are amazing.
Yeah, definitely. So have you gotten into canning much
Oh
or
yeah.
preserving?
Well, so we've always done salsa or even just stewed tomatoes, but that's just been the extent of our canning. And this year it kind of exploded. Like I have jars of pickles coming out my ears. Because they just, like, the pickles just kept coming, the cucumbers just kept coming, and I'm like, I just make more pickles. So, and that's an easy thing to do to the pickles. They're super easy, and to me, I haven't bought store-bought pickles for over a year, so it's been really nice. And we got into more. I bought a pressure canner, and we did pumpkin, which the pressure canner scares me to death.
It's a process.
It is, but I started out with pumpkins we had in the garage that I knew they were getting ready to go bad. So I thought, okay, well, that'll be easy. Let's start with that. So I've got pumpkin in there. I canned my own cranberry juice. We made taco sauce. So we kind of expanded our canning pantry a little bit more this year, which was really nice.
Right. So when you started working with your pressure canner, did you do did you do it on your stove inside, or did you take one of those I can't remember what they're called, but the things you hook up to a propane gas tank and do it outside?
We did ours inside. So we did it inside on our gas cooktop, and I sat there and babysat it the whole time because I don't know. I think I did the same thing with my Instapot when we got it too. It's just the fear of pressure inside of something and an explosion.
Right.
So, and I even, during the process, I took pictures along the way because I don't claim to know everything, being that it was my first time. I don't know if the little thing rocking back and forth, is it going too fast? So I put it in my Instagram story and just asked people, I did a poll, is this too fast? And for the majority said that yes, it was going too fast. So now I know. We had a little bit of siphoning of the liquid. So now I know what to look for. And I guess that's my thing, is I'm not afraid to ask for help because I don't know everything, and I don't claim to know everything. And I try to post my failings and our successes, not just the good stuff.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the things that just getting into the Instagram or the homestead community online that I've loved is everybody seems to be so kind and welcoming and sharing the knowledge. And just not, I love that you're not afraid to ask for help, because none of us ever know anything. I don't care how long you've been doing it, you don't know all of it.
Right.
On that note, so what is your biggest failure so far on your homestead, and what have you learned from it? Because I know, man, we have had a lot.
Well, so far, last year, we really messed up with the garden. We planted it, and then we went on vacation. And by the time we came back, the weeds had gotten out of control. And we lost a lot of our corn because the weeds just we couldn't keep on top of the whole thing. So back to the landscaping paper, that led to a discussion. Okay, so my husband watches all kinds of videos while he's working, or he listens to them. He doesn't watch them, but he
Yeah.
listens. And he's like, hey, I've got this idea. I think we should do paper that you burn the holes and then plant this. I'm like, okay, fine.
Okay.
And I think that's going to work better for that. You know, we'll leave a row for the corn, and it'll make it a lot more manageable. And so that, I think that outside the house, that was the biggest failure. I thought that the pumpkin I pressure canned was a failure. And then again, asking questions, they're like, oh no, it's fine. If you haven't siphoned off over half the liquid, you're good. So I'm like, okay, well, to me, it felt like a failure, but asking for help, it turns out it wasn't.
Yeah. So we did the same thing with our first set of green beans. We took out about that much liquid.
Yeah.
So is that what happened? You lost some of your liquid, siphoned off?
I think because the rocker was rocking so fast, I didn't get it. I don't think the internal temperature was regulated correctly. Okay. And then at the end, I think what happened at the end was I let it sit there in the canner too long before I took them out. So I think that's how a lot of the water got siphoned off. So you live and you learn, and now I know what to look for, and I'll probably still sit there and babysit it the whole time.
Oh yeah. It's a trial and error process. Absolutely. Yes. Is there anything major that you've changed that you've done? Or has it just been a great learning process?
It's been a great learning process. I don't know if it's my ADD or my whatever.
I'm like with you. I'm all over the place. So.
I want to do all the things. Like, like I want to have the chickens, and I want a greenhouse, and I want to put up a fence so we can get the cows. And I'm like, okay, we gotta rein it in here, and let's one step at a time. So hopefully we have a vacation scheduled in May, and then I have my chickens on order for after we come back, because I didn't want to have baby chicks and then have to leave for vacation. So again, that was another local contact I made on Instagram, was somebody that's just a city south of us. And I'm ordering my chickens from her. So that was another great contact.
That's awesome. I can't remember, did you get any kind of specific chicks from her?
She's asked me, and I haven't really decided. I don't even know. I don't know.
Okay.
I might want to tell her, like, you pick whatever you think is going to be. To me, I would rather have good layers. I don't care about the colors are nice. I like the different colors of the eggs, but I don't know. I guess that's not super important to me. I just want consistent layers.
So your biggest goal for having the chickens isn't really meat. It's more the eggs.
Right. And then eventually we would like to get into meat birds down the road. And she has offered, because she didn't want to sex the birds when we get them, she said if I ended up with too many roosters, that she'd be more than willing to help us process them. So I thought that was super awesome that she is going to do that, because again, that's it's another skill we can add to the list. And when you have people willing to do that, I think is amazing.
Yeah, that's just so important. And one of the next people I'm going to talk to is the importance of community building. And I just love how many people you've reached out to and relationships you've started building already, just to help you, gain more skills for your homestead and your family. So I know you have some older kids and then a younger one, kind of like same as I do.
Yeah.
How involved are the older kids or your younger one? Like how?
Well, the older one, he's a junior in college, and he works 2 jobs. So he's not super involved, but he got his first deer on our property. So to me, that's his contribution to the house. And that was another learning thing, that we processed it all ourselves instead of taking it somewhere. We did it all on our own.
Wow.
And we've never done that before.
Right.
So
I haven't processed a deer, so I would have no idea what to do there.
and I was very, because I have a really bad aversion to raw meat. And so I had to
Yep.
kind of get over that, because here we are grinding up all this meat for like burger, ground venison. So I had to just suck it up and get over it and get to work. And we did it, and we learned a lot. There was a lot of waste. The deer he happened to get had a lot of fat in it, so we had a lot of waste with the fat. But we know now things not to do for the next time. So again, I don't ever think an experience is bad if you're learning from it.
Yeah. So when you were learning or going through that process, had your husband ever processed, or was this like everybody's first time doing
No,
it?
it was everybody's first time doing it.
So how did you figure out what to do?
Thankfully, my husband's brother, he has processed deer before.
Okay.
So he gave us some pointers and things to do. He did come down and like supervised the dressing out in the field. And I don't want to get like too gross, but the dressing, and he just kind of helped with that part of it. And then the rest of it, we did all of that on our own. So, yep.
So a lot of people haven't even eaten venison before.
Yes.
We've eaten it. I've never dressed it, but or done that. But what would you compare the taste like? I know a lot of people are even like have an aversion to even trying it.
Right.
Yeah.
And I did, because when I was a kid, my dad, the only deer my dad ever got, he made me sit and hold the flashlight while he's cleaning it.
Okay.
So I think that's part of where my aversion to the deer came from. And then when my son was young, we have youth weekends here in Indiana, where kids can go hunting for free, and he would get a deer every youth season. So I started eating it because they would make steaks, and it was delicious. To me, I couldn't tell the difference between a deer steak and a regular steak. And I think it's all in how long it hangs, how it's processed, the seasonings you put on it, and the age of the deer. I think that has a lot to do with it. If it's an older deer, I think it will tend to taste more gamey. Thankfully, we haven't had one that's been super old.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, not to get into too much of a tutorial, but like, how did you hang it? How did you, what does that process even look like?
So when they gutted it, they threw everything out in the woods, and the hawks came by, and there's a couple coyotes that roam around. They pretty much took care of all that yucky stuff. But they just hung it in our garage. Thankfully it was cold enough that it was able to hang in the garage.
Yeah.
And that's kind of jarring when you have to walk out to take the dog to the bathroom, and there's a carcass hanging in your garage. I'm like, oh, gross. And it has no, it's got no skin on it, and it's just something you're not expecting. But then it's like, okay, this is what we want. This is the life we want. This is,
sustainable.
Yes. Right. Living off the land.
Right. Yeah. That's amazing. I wouldn't even see with processed birds, but I haven't done deer, so
yeah. And thankfully my husband, because he's always been a fisher, and he's like, it's just like, when you clean a fish, you just got to debone it and get all the meat off. It's same process, just different animal. So we vacuum sealed up the steaks and the bigger cuts of meat, and then ground the rest that we wanted to grind down, and we were happy with what we got. So And again, we all worked on it together. I think that was huge, because here we are, my son, because he is gone so much, him and I are sitting here grinding meat, and we're having a conversation, not even about the deer, but just talking while we're working. And
Yeah.
so it was nice.
Bringing your family together and the togetherness.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. So what do you, out of all of the homesteading stuff, I know you talked about the most important thing you've learned from a failure, but overall, what do you think is the most important thing you've learned just in general with homesteading?
To not give up. Sorry, I changed my name on there real quick.
No,
To
you're
not
fine.
give up. To not give up, and not, if something fails, don't be afraid to try it again. Last week I made English muffins, and they were as hard as brick box. I was like, oh my gosh. And you hate, they're still edible, but I'm like,
Right.
I totally screwed this up. I missed a whole step of the process. And when you're working with, and I've never done sourdough before, so I've got all this discard that I've been trying to find all these recipes for. I'm like, oh, I'll try English muffins. Oh my gosh, it's been a disaster. So I had 2 failed batches of those, but I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna try them again. Because I like English muffins, and they weren't super hard. They're just time consuming. And so
Right.
you just try again. And I think that's been, and if something doesn't work, you pivot and find a better way to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very, very good point. Yeah. Because there's so many times that things go wrong in your homestead.
Yes.
You have failures, and just, yeah, I love that.
And again, don't be afraid to, if you can, like the bees, that's not my wheelhouse. And maybe eventually I would like to learn, but I knew I just wasn't ready for that commitment of doing that. So I'm like, hey, how can I still have this benefit to the garden in a hands-off approach? So
Yeah, I never in a million years would have even thought of that. I absolutely love that idea, and it can benefit so many people. I'm like, oh, who can I call to come out here and do this? Because I have this beehive that I have no idea what I'm doing with. Like, we didn't even harvest.
And you would be surprised that there are people that are looking for land to put their bees on. The 2 brothers that have bees, they have bees in several places across town, and and the honey they get from across town is different than the honey that they get here. It's kind of neat to see all the different honeys all together, because they're all different colors, they're all different flavors. So it is interesting.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I never would have even thought about that. That's just that's such a great idea. Well, is there anything else that you can think of that you would recommend to people looking to get into homesteading, or just looking to change their lifestyle, that we haven't talked about?
Don't be afraid to try something new that you don't know how to do. I'm huge on research. Like, I'll buy a book, I'll look online, and if I can't figure out how to do it, I'll research how to do it, or I'll ask somebody that I know already does it, and I'll be like, hey, how do I do this? How, like with the chickens, how do I get started? And that's my thing, is don't be afraid to ask for help. I guess that's part of my personality. I keep going back to the bees, but I'm not afraid to, like, drive up the road and ask the neighbors, hey, ask a question.
Yeah.
Like, there was a farm around the corner, a bunch of cows had got out, and I happened to see one going through the field next to our house. I drove down to his house. I'm like, hey, are your cows out? And we already had that relationship. So it's like, I didn't mind driving down to his house and asking if his cows were out. wasn't his, but there was a cow roaming around from somebody.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point though, because a lot of us, it's not in our wheelhouse to raise cattle or raise dairy, cows or dairy goats even.
Right.
But making those relationships,
Yes.
to be able to barter or trade or
Yes.
that can be
And
really.
there's a local farm. It's not too far from us, where I get a lot of my eggs. Since we don't have chickens yet, I get a lot of my eggs from there. And one day I just asked her, I was like, hey, I need X amount of dozen, because I was going to water glass some eggs. Can we come and collect them ourselves? And she was like, sure, come on out. So we get to go in and see how they got 2 huge chicken tractors with solar electric fencing. And here's like hundreds of birds that come out to greet us. And we went in and collected probably 8 dozen eggs. And it was, my husband and I went out, we gathered the eggs, and it was a neat experience, because you get to see a larger operation and how they make things work. And then she gave us a 50-cent discount per dozen, because we
Collect them.
well, we collected more than what we needed. So then, she had more eggs for the farm too. So
Yeah.
it was neat. And I guess I'm not afraid to ask those things. And I think that's what people need to, there's people out there that want to help. I mean, that's what I've learned. Even through Instagram, I have certain people that I go to that I know have specialties, or they know how to do something that I don't know how to do, and I'll go to them for advice. Because you kind of, when you're on Instagram, you see, okay, this person's strong suit is XYZ, and then this person does this. And so you know who to go to for help.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No,
Sorry,
absolutely.
I ramble.
Yeah. No, you're fine. No, I know. Some people I see do really well with chickens or goats, or I have a friend that is doing great with goats, and I'm like, okay, well, I know chickens and I know birds, but I'm going to ask her about the goats.
Right.
So that makes total sense. But the one thing I have never actually done yet is water glassing eggs, and I know you've said you tried that.
Yes.
How was that process for you? Was it difficult?
No, it's not difficult at all. You have to make sure, and there's other people out there that have done it more times than I have. And I actually was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about water glassing versus liming. I say water glassing because, to me, you're putting them in a glass and there's water, so it's water glass. But I guess back in the old days, water glassing, they would coat them with some kind of jelly-like substance.
That's what I was thinking of when I heard water glassing. That's why.
So I guess that is so that is officially water glassing. To me, what I did was the liming. Use the pickling lime in the water, and then the egg, put the egg. I just used like a half-gallon jar. And I think I could fit 14 to 16 eggs, depending on how big they are, in that jar. And then it's a quart of water to an ounce of lime. I think it is an ounce of lime. Yes. And mix that together real good. Get your eggs, and then pour the water over that. And then the lime will settle to the bottom, but it coats the egg, and it doesn't make them like super, super hard where you can't crack them open when you take them out. But it puts like a protective coating on them, so nothing can penetrate them. So the lime doesn't get in the egg.
Right.
But they have to be unwashed eggs. That's why we went to go get our own, because we wanted to make sure that because she has to wash them. And you have to leave the bloom on, and they can't have any poo on them from the chickens. So they have to just be clean, unwashed eggs. And then they say that they can last up to 2 years, but the longer they sit in the water, the less nutrients are in the eggs.
Okay.
And then when you take one out, you can take one out at a time, two out at a time, and then just rinse the lime off really well and crack them, smell them, make sure they haven't gone bad. And they, from everything I've seen, we haven't used ours yet because I just did it in the summer.
Okay, that was my question.
Well, and from everybody that I've watched that has done this, the only thing that's different is the yolks are a little bit more runny.
Oh, okay.
But they say it doesn't affect the taste at all. So I have a ton of eggs right now, but I was waiting until I run out to try them. So probably when I'm done with the eggs I have now, I'm gonna bust open a jar just to see how well it did and compare. I want to compare it to a fresh egg and then one that's been sitting for 6 months.
Right. So are they supposed to be a normal egg texture? Or they?
Yeah, if you scramble it.
Okay.
They say that if you scramble it, but they don't. They said the only thing they don't make is a good fried egg or
over easy,
or yeah.
Okay. Yep. Be great for baked goods, probably.
Yes, right, right. And then they said you can still, if you use the shells for your chickens, since you've washed the egg off really well, you can still use the shell for your chicken. You can still give them to your chickens.
Okay, yeah, because we do that. We use all the shells and give them right back to our chickens.
Right.
So that's good to know. I
yeah.
know, so.
Yes, and the lady at church, the older lady, I was able to teach her something, and I was like, "Oh, that made me feel good."
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know. I've had so many questions about. I've watched these videos about doing that, but I've always been kind of apprehensive to do it because it seems intimidating. I'm like, oh, what if I do it wrong? What if it cracks? It's gonna smell bad. Eggs, you know what I mean? So.
Yes, and I had one jar that an egg cracked, and what I had read was if one cracks, it ruins the whole batch. So I dumped the whole batch out. Well, and then I've read other things, and it's like, okay, if one goes bad, then the other one should be fine. And I just erred on the safe side because it's eggs, and just threw them all out.
Yeah.
And the smell was horrible.
Yeah, with eggs.
It was so bad. It was so bad.
But what it sounds like, I think if I remember talking to you, you said like a lot of things that you read said you could actually scoop it out and it might be okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just fearful because eggs and just erred on the side of caution, I guess.
Yeah. Well, when you're trying something new, you're always, erring on the side of caution, but it's just something good to know and to learn and to not, be afraid to just get rid of that one and see how the rest turn out sometimes.
Right. And the one, I have 4 jars in there right now and they all look really good. So that's why I'm really curious. I want to try it. I might do it next week just to compare.
Yeah, definitely post how that goes and let us know.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see. Show the picture of them, like after you crack them too, to show the consistency. I'm so interested.
Yeah. I might do like a little video. That's another thing I haven't gotten comfortable with is I've noticed a lot of people get in their stories and they're not. I hate the way I sound in videos, and I'm so self-conscious about it. And I'm like, oh, my hair's gotta be right. And, well, I
get it. I can't look at the side of the camera where I'm at. I can't. I will not watch the videos after the fact because I'm right there with you. Like, I make him watch the videos. I make him help edit all of them. I'm like, I don't see it. I'm passionate about the message and reaching out and making connections with people, but it is hard to get in front of the camera and see yourself and hear yourself. But
I guess I have to look at it. Okay, well, I watched so-and-so and they helped me. Maybe something I have to say could help somebody that's just starting out, because look here, I did it and this didn't work. Let's try it this way. So I just need to get out of my own head and just get myself out there.
Yes, 100%. And that's exactly why I wanted you to come on, especially being kind of a new homesteader. I know you've done gardening for 20 plus years. And so you got that down, but there's a lot of things that we can all learn from each other. And I just thank you so much for
Yes, thank you.
time.
This has been amazing.
Yeah, I love connecting with other people, and I really hope that everybody goes and takes a look at your Instagram. And it's Crystal at Hawthorne Homestead, right?
Yep, Hawthorne, and then it's Hawthorne_Homestead on Instagram.
Okay, I will put it in the description box below.
Thank you.
Find you.
Thank you for reaching out.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for taking the time to do this. And yeah, thank you. This has been great. It's been so nice connecting and meeting you. And
yes, after how many of our hours conversation the other day, that was so nice.
But yeah, I'll put your information in the description box, and you will have to keep us updated with the eggs and your
I will
progression with your chickens and stuff. So
yes, okay.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening, hon.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.